Hello everyone, and welcome to Hype Time. Today we'll be talking about the PAX announcements, the first of which has been a long time coming. I am of course referring to challenging group content, which was confirmed for the second time to be raids. Raids are going to be 10-man instance encounters, and for Heart of Thorns, we are getting a single raid with 3 wings on launch. While I was rather hoping to get 2, the scale of each wing is totally unknown, and the PAX show heavily implied that more raids will be added throughout the course of the living world. Something else we found out is that we are getting a mere 4 maps at launch. I'm remaining optimistic here. ArenaNet will probably roll out more maps as the living world progresses, otherwise we'll never have enough extra zones to make it to Cantha. And ArenaNet knows how the community feels about Cantha. It's also worth noting that Colin spent a large majority of his time firing shots at conventional MMOs.
And our Metacritic score is the highest of any new MMO in the last decade. We don't want to add new levels. We don't want to add new tiers of gear that you have to constantly grind through. There's no kill stealing. Everyone can harvest from the same resource nodes. We've replaced traditional questing. It's always fun when you see another player. And it's all about how good of a player you are as opposed to going through a massive grind before you can start playing the game mode that you love, but without all the headaches traditionally associated with raiding.
Let's have a brief round of applause for that. The reason for this cross-company banter is simple. The core Guild Wars 2 game is now free, and Colin wants to steal all of WoW's subscribers. And he certainly is an effective Pied Piper analogue. Just look at that cheeky grin. You might think that the community would become a cesspit of filth, but there have been steps taken to avoid this. Free accounts can't use map chat, have less bag and character slots, can't mail things to people, can only start a new whisper conversation every 30 seconds, don't receive login rewards, and have to get to level 60 to participate in World vs World, which is incredibly important in defeating griefing. Additional measures have also been taken to combat botters, which is always welcome. Will the community suffer? In some respects a little. But overall, the gain the game itself will receive through new players and exposure outweighs this in the extreme. But don't take my word for it. Here to tell us what all this could mean is none other than Deroir.
Here's my 2 cents on the free-to-play model. As long as the economy is safeguarded with locked daily rewards and limited mailing, I'm perfectly alright with this, and will gladly welcome any and all new players into the game. Free to play aside, let's talk challenging group content. First off, just a quick note I guess, I'm really excited that Fractals of the Mists were announced as one of ArenaNet's essential living and breathing dungeons in the game going forth. Fractals have a very special place in my heart and have so much to offer in terms of expandability, both content-wise and challenge-wise. Its versatility makes it the perfect dungeon, and that excites me so much. That said, raids! Now, for those of you guys who watched the pre-show, Teapot and I were heavily discussing the pros of having party sizes divisible by 5 so as to maintain the core synergy in the group, especially due to the 5 allies cap that most support skills have. So personally, 10-man was exactly what I wanted. Now, as Mr. Teapot implied, we're still missing a ton of info about the raid itself other than the fact that it's a thing. But from the trailer, we can already see numerous mechanics in play. We see masteries getting some use. We see something that looks like a timed running event. Also, these differently colored monsters on top of the Bloodstone may symbolize different facets of magic as we know it, which may imply that during what looks to be a single boss encounter, we may come to see 3 different bosses with widely varying mechanics to them. This would incentivize players to strategize very effectively before ever approaching this encounter. Lastly, and most importantly, we get a glimpse at the necessity for coordination, with the party having to break down a wall to get to safety at the right time. This, to me, is one of the most essential aspects to creating a truly challenging raid encounter. The insinuation that raids will consist of inconsistent encounters seem to hold some real interesting and possibly challenging value to them, since this will heavily promote skill, trait, and weapon versatility for the individual players, as well as the promotion of intense group play and organization. Now, given the fact that we still know very little about all of this, I want to discuss something with you guys, and That's the idea of the integration of the living story into the expansion's overall arc. Now, when Heartathons launches, there won't initially be a raid. Instead, they said that they'll slowly roll out the different wings of the raid with the living story, I'm assuming. This will give players a fair few weeks to get their masteries in order and get used to their new elite specialization, so that when the first wing of the raid actually launches, everyone will have had time to prepare for it. And so initially I thought to myself, well, that's genius. That way this whole endeavor won't simply be a race of masteries to enter. But my second thought was, well, just how far are they going to take this idea? We know that raids aren't the only thing getting gradually rolled out. We'll also start off with only 3 new legendary weapons and, well, of course, even the new super exciting legendary armor pieces tied to the raid itself will also have its progression tightly linked to the living story arc. Slow and steady visual progression is all fine and dandy in Fashion Wars 2. We saw that idea excel with the launch of the Silver Waste, but what about the story itself? I mean, it sure worked fine for the living story, but quite a few players were at times quite unhappy with the pacing of it. Now, with the announcement, there was also a very telling line of text. You'll journey through 4 of the largest, most diverse and replayable maps ever built in the world of Guild Wars. So that's 4 maps confirmed, but can we be sure that Mr. Morgermoth himself is going to appear in any of them? Because even though it's clearly stated that these maps are quite large and extensive in nature, 4 maps still sound like a very limited number of maps. Especially given the fact that the core story and game contain 25 maps excluding cities, with the living story adding 3 in itself. Assuming this is the way they're going to do it. Launch the expansion with like 50% of its actual content available, and then slowly roll out the remaining 50% over the course of several months, maybe even years, as with the initial seasons of the living story. I still believe the longevity of the game will be a lot more safe. With a strategy like this to all aspects of the game, we will come to see a truly living world open up to us. Sure, we might have some players that will heavily disagree with the positive intent of this business model, but still, I believe that if we strip away the majority of this fancy new stuff that's coming, the living world model is what will keep players in the game to hone their skills for the next inevitable challenge to arise just around the corner. Who knows, if ArenaNet plays their cards right in this matter and let us progressively get better and better with several masteries and specializations, we might come to see the biggest fight of our gaming careers when Morgermoth himself finally grows out of the deep, possibly in his own exclusive map or raid. Or if you guys will allow me to go full mental on the speculations, perhaps we might come to see a clash of dragons with the rise of Steve, the Deep Sea Dragon. That would be epic times a million. With the living story concept in place, ArenaNet would have a bunch more time available to them to create truly challenging encounters and truly immersive maps while we hone our skills for the next big thing to happen. Personally, I'm a strong advocate of this sort of longevity. But tell us what you guys think about this massive announcement. Are you hyped now? Let us know in the comment section down below. Until next time, we'll see you in the mists.